But we are going to hear from Tom Farrell about this great model that he's building that John Allen originally created. So, Tom, welcome.
Well, thank you again for having me. This is expanded to four parts. This has taken a lot longer than I expected to build this. And so this is where I left off in my engine house. Again, this is a John Allen themed engine house in O scale, scaled for On30. So it's basically selective compression of John Allen's iconic engine house. So as I said in earlier programs, one glance at this and you'll know that it's based on the 1948 engine house that he made in two parts. Okay, as I had indicated earlier, I drew this one up in CAD, which was critical to get basically the entrance and rear entrance correct. Specifically, the location of this penetration for the window and this pass through for the locomotives. The engine house has the ability to enter the front of the engine house, and in the right track, which is the left track here, pass through the engine house to a service track. This is the material I'm going to use for the rear wall. This is that Monster Model Works material. It doesn't have a sufficient height for me to cover the full height of my wall, so I had to basically cut two additional pieces and glue them together to come up with a blank of sufficient size to cut out for that rear wall. Now, here's an interesting phenomenon. I reversed the drawing. I did in CAD, you can take a drawing and then flip it, because when I glue this, when I glue the template here on the right, on the back of the Monster Model Works that I've glued together here, if I use the original drawing, the penetration would be on the wrong side. So I had to reverse the drawing. I had to do a flip. I think you understand what I mean. And there it is. I glued with rubber cement, I glued the CAD drawing onto the back of the blank. And then when I reversed the blank, it's now on the correct size for the pass through. Now I glued this on here, and then these walls are in the way. I'll show you what I did there. I just cut them with a razor saw, so you can see this is the wall now glued onto the back, and this is the actual paper. I'm going to paint right over this, just like I did on the front here. And right here, there's a problem. I just got to cut that with a razor saw. And that's what I've done here with a razor saw, and simply carving out the bottom. I corrected I got a perfect fit for the penetration for the door, the man door, and then for the locomotive. So those are the two spots I cut with a razor saw. I took my original template that was glued to the Strathmore board, and for the roof trusses, I was done with this template because obviously I had already built the front of the engine house. So I didn't need this Strathmore CAD printout anymore. So I added this, I made a simple fixture that I could lay in my roof trusses. These are brutally sized because in an engine house, there'll be a beam that runs across the bottom of this. They'd put a hoist on there and lift pretty heavy stuff in an engine house. So these are pretty robust beams. And I had to make, I think, four of them. And to get them exactly the same size, I created that template. And yeah, so this is where the first one went. And what I did before I glued it in place is it sort of fits in a tray here that I made this box that these trusses fit in. And I wanted these trusses to be exactly the same size as the front of this engine house. So before I super glued this in place, I pushed this all the way forward and I marked it with a pencil if it was a little larger than this. And then I sanded it to it was an exact duplicate. It was pretty close to begin with, but I wanted it when I put my roof on, since it's going to be a removable roof. I didn't want any of these trusses to be high or low. I wanted them all the same size. So every time I made a truss in my jig, I placed one in the front of this engine house, marked it if it had high spots, and on my micro mark disc sander, I sanded it till it was flush with this. So when I put in all these trusses, they are all exactly the same as this truss. And then I used that jig to make these two pieces that were missing off of the front and rear of the engine house. And everything was painted this flat chocolate brown. Just another view. There's still some touch up and sanding and work to be done inside, but it's coming along. This is the back side of the engine house. So there's another week's worth of work here for sure. Sorry. So there's looking inside. We're starting to get that, if you put a locomotive and workbenches and some lights in there, it'd start to look like it was a real engine house. Starting to get a pretty nice dynamic to it. Still in a few areas that need touched up and fixed, and I should put some green trim here, but there's little details. The devil's in the details with one of these. If Pat would notice, I went back and painted this white missing little private joke. But this is coming along, and I'm going to probably put more detail, more green on this back wall. But it's starting to become a pretty attractive build, at least to me, to my eyes. I think I like it. I'm going to put some kind of truss across the middle of this and some hoists and things in there. I'm figuring by next week I should have the roof on and the weathering. I'll probably not have a part 5 where I show you all the bench. Maybe at some point I'll show you the bench work and the tools and all the miscellaneous stuff I put on the inside. My goal for the next presentation is to finish the roof, finish the weathering, get this limestone foundation to look proper. But I think I've achieved, I wanted what I called in the beginning an old-fashioned look is how I termed it. And this green and white really pulled that off, I think. And it's going to be weathered, and but it's looking pretty neat.
Tom, refresh our memory. What color is the green?
Yeah, that's a nice story. It was originally a Floqual dark green, and then I was just perusing my Tamiya paints, and they had a dark green, flat green. Or I had a flat green from Tamiya, and then I pulled it off my shelf, mixed it, and painted some of this Tamiya paint on my over top of the Floqual green, and it was a virtual perfect match. So one of my complaints a couple shows ago was the foul, toxic toluene that comes off of Floqual paints. I made a statement that I no longer wanted to use Floqual unless I absolutely had to. Well, that right wall, which is not featured in this picture, is actually the Tamaya paint. It's not the Flocal paint. So that's actually the Tamaya paint. There's no difference in color between it and the Flocal. The major difference is it doesn't smell or give you maybe cancer like I've already beat. So that was interesting. So that's all I have this time, and next time it should be complete. So it took 4 parts. It just was a lot of work in this thing, more than I expected. And it is, even though I compressed it, it's still quite large, 12 inches roughly in length, and maybe 8 inches high, 6.5 inches wide. It's a pretty, I mean, for On30, even though we're O scale, a lot of our structures, like our locomotives, are typically smaller. It's just the way we do things, I guess. But it's probably, I checked, it's probably the second largest or third largest building on my layout, or will be. So it's pretty big for its size, for what it is. Yeah.
Tom, you're a fantastic modeler,
Thank
and you
you.
know how long it's taken you to build this model. How long do you think it took John Allen to build the original?
What John Allen did, where you really have to give a nod to, some might say, the original master model builder, he probably took, I mean, there's no, what he did was absolutely remarkable, because he didn't use Tichy windows. He didn't use CAD. He didn't use pre-cut laser monster model work, siding and roofing material and flooring material. He did everything. He did I always refer to myself as a scratch builder. I might be considered a designer and assembler. He's a true scratch builder. I mean, I've did board by board construction, but what he did, and I keep comparing mine to his, he wins the prize. He just did a beautiful job, and he just used cardboard and acetate and just basic materials, and turned out a model that would compete at a show with anybody. He I think people underestimate his, or may not be aware of his skills, but he was over the top.
Well, you built a beautiful model. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. Well, we look
Thank
forward
you.
to seeing you next week, Tom. And at some point, I do want to see how you detail it.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll do a part 5.
There you go. Thanks so
Bill,
much.